The new owners of Chelsea ended the transfer window last Jan, having broken the £1 billion barrier in fees since their takeover in May last year. Over the summer window, according to one well-placed source, Chelsea's ownership were continuously thinking about what that 100-point team looks like, and putting together the right players who will make that 100-point team. It is a typically ambitious target for Ighbali and Burley, achieved just once in the Premier League era by Manchester City in 2017-18. The two Americans are very different men, united in the consortium to buy Chelsea for £2.5 billion, with a further £1.75 billion pledged for investment. However, Chelsea is under the financial microscope amidst warnings of potentially severe consequences should they be found guilty of breaching Premier League financial rules. Former Everton chief Keith Wyness believes Chelsea may have no way out of a points deduction as a consequence of their aggressive transfer spending under Todd Boehly. The Blues currently stuck in mid-table. Earlier this month, Chelsea announced a loss of £90.1 million for the 2022-23 campaign to raise fears over their compliance with profit and sustainability rules. The Premier League have been coming down hard on teams who have fallen foul of the regulations, with Everton and Nottingham Forest both getting points deductions in recent months. Chelsea have denied that they will breach PSR throughout this season, insisting in their statement on the accounts that they are expecting to comply with all Premier League financial rules. However, former Everton chief executive Wyness has warned that a penalty could be inevitable unless Chelsea can pull off some very clever engineering in the transfer market. Speaking on the Inside Track podcast, Wyness said, "I think this time next year we're going to be sitting here discussing the Chelsea rule breach. I don't think the Premier League have left themselves anywhere else to go but a serious points deduction. I think Chelsea could have had the biggest breach so far unless there is some very clever engineering done in the transfer market, but I think it will be very hard to do. Listen, don't underestimate Todd Boehly and his ability and connections with Saudi Arabia. There are a lot of connections between Saudi and his investment group to try and pull something out of the fire, but I feel there is no way out of this one for Chelsea. This time next year, we'll be talking about unhappy Chelsea fans. There will be a lot more documents from the Everton and Nottingham Forest cases setting up precedents for how these things are going to be handled. But it appears these rules, which have been criticised for being unclear and outdated, are now changing. Let's explore this issue with AG Chelsea TV. Among a slew of anti-corruption regulations is the key one: teams are at the greatest risk of breaching, that clubs can only lose a maximum of £105 million across any 3-year period. Now, it's not quite that simple. You can deduct healthy expenditure like academy and women's team investment from your losses, so teams can technically lose more than £105 million. The latter are unlikely to substantially change, but the £105 million limit is set to be scrapped altogether and replaced by a squad cost ratio, in line with UEFA's Financial Sustainability Rules, FSR, the successor to FFP. A squad cost ratio is simply calculated. You divide any club's first-team wage budget, transfer amortization costs and agents' fees by its overall revenue. FSR is currently winding down year on year to a squad cost ratio of 70% as the limit, starting with 90% in 2023-24, before decreasing to 80% in 2024-25. The Premier League are reportedly aiming for a relatively generous 85% squad cost ratio, meaning clubs just need to have their wage budget and amortization costs below 85% of their revenue. It's important to note that while clubs have agreed on a change to the regulations, it is currently unclear whether they will be introduced at the league's AGM in June. There are probably fans of every Premier League club who want to know how changes to PSR will affect their teams, but none so more than Chelsea. And for once this season, it's good news for the Blues. Mauricio Pochettino's side would probably be the biggest winners from this rule change. As football finance expert Rob Wilson told last week, Chelsea need to sell over £100 million before the end of June to comply with PSR in its current state. While Stefan Borson now believes Chelsea would need to sell several first-team players before the FFP deadline on June 30th, there was an assumption with Mason Mount, because he was announced on Manchester United's website on July 1st that his sale had been put into this current season. Borson said, so the £55 million of profit was in this season. It now transpires that Mason Mount appears to have been transacted in 2022-23, and that is how they got through. When it was suggested that Chelsea now have a £55 million hole this season, Borson replied, correct, because we also know from the Blueco accounts that they are currently, from the post-balance sheet events, that they are something like £48 million in profit for this year. But of course, this year from an operating perspective is going to be even worse than last year because they've got no Champions League and no Europe at all. When asked how Chelsea can financially cope without European football, Borson replied, "Really? They have to find buyers for Trevoh Chalobah for £20 million, Armando Broja for £40 million, and Conor Gallagher for £50 million. It's those sort of deals that need to be done. And by the way, they all need to be done by June 30th. That, as we know, is articulated within the Forest decision. There's a whole conversation about how hard it is to sell players in the period before June. The Premier League actually suggested that more or less that it was impossible. Yet because Chelsea's revenue was announced at an all-time high of £512.5 million in their 2023 accounts, a squad cost ratio would give them a lot more headroom, especially when capped at 85%. The club have been actively working to reduce their wage budget by buying younger players, who tend to demand lower salaries, which counts as a positive. Compared to the £1.12 billion they have spent on transfers since Blueco bought Chelsea in May 2022, Chelsea would comfortably fall within an 85% squad cost ratio as it stands and would avoid what currently feels like an almost inevitable PSR points deduction. And that's the final content of today's video. Like, subscribe to support AG Chelsea TV.